What's going on, everybody? Salute. It's your main man, Mark Fuller. This is the Free World Order, another video archive for you. I want to thank everyone for subscribing to the YouTube channel, commenting, for liking us on Facebook. Those of you contributing financially to us, I want to give a big thank you to, helping us to reach our goal of raising $1 billion in order to build the first resource-based city on the planet, as laid out through the Venus Project. Excuse me. Check out the venusproject.com to get more information on what I'm making reference to when I talk about the resource-based economy, because you'll have an idea of what is not only possible, but what the world can and should look like when we are not dealing with a society limited by money. Just roll this window up over here. When we're dealing with a society not limited by money, everything pretty much changes. We're dealing with and interacting with the planet itself. Many would argue that that's not the case now, but I don't really deal with arguing with people, because you get into debates and you're really just going back and forth and nothing is actually being done to change the paradigm and the system that we're currently a part of. We really have to get people to see what it is that we have now, why it's fucked up and doesn't work for everyone on our planet, and why it needs to work for every human being on the planet. If you're thinking that, well, that's just the way that the world is, that is so much bullshit that you're being fed through media and through everything that's in place to keep the system that we currently have in place running uninterrupted. It's all bullshit, though, at the end of the day. But let me get into my topic. I want to talk about why do people do negative things to have a better life. And when we examine that, we get a better understanding of why someone would do something. I like to explore this because when you look at what people are doing, you have to really examine the root cause of what someone might be doing and the reason that they behave the way that they do. As far as a system that we are cooperating with as human beings, we could do a hell of a lot better than what we're doing right now. The systems that are in place as far as money and the way that we communicate with one another on a social level. Like right now, it's easier to communicate with people all across the world because of the internet, right? That is one of the most powerful inventions that mankind has ever accomplished, because we're able to instantly communicate and transfer information really anywhere across the world where somebody has a cell phone or a computer and internet access. You can communicate directly with people. We look at all of these Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We look at all of these new apps, WhatsApp. I remember back in the day, AOL, when they first created something called Instant Messenger. That was the first instance of DM that you saw. Then Facebook came about. Even before Facebook, MySpace, a whole bunch of other, companies that came about moving in the same direction. And it's moved us into the direction where we ended up at right now. And it continues to get better. So as human beings, we are constantly evolving and we're improving. But the problem is that all human beings are still not benefiting from what humanity has to offer. Like, you still have people starving. You still have people who are homeless. And you still have people basically at the bottom of society trying to do all that they can do to function and survive within the system that we all live in, from within the confines of the system that we're a part of. It doesn't account for so many things that can prevent human suffering, which is the problem I have with the way that things are. A lot of people would say, well, it's better than it used to be. Of course, it's supposed to be better than it used to be, but it should be better than it is. And my reason for saying that is that people are still confused about why people behave the way that they do, when there's nothing to be confused about. Human behavior is directly attached to the environment that a human being is living in and exposed to. Period. Remember that we react to our environment. You're not born behaving a certain way. You behave according to those around you. How do they behave? What are they doing? What are they actually talking about? What are they saying? How are they speaking? What language are they speaking? Whatever language they're speaking is the language you're more likely to speak, most likely to speak, because you're being raised up and being exposed to that language. So if I was a black child born in Saudi Arabia, I'm gonna more than likely speak the Arabic language as I grow up if I'm raised in that environment. You see what I'm saying? More than likely my religion will be Islam. I'll be a Muslim, more than likely. The chances of me not speaking Arabic and becoming a Muslim or being a Muslim from birth are slim to none. If that's the environment that I'm raised in, that's more than likely what I will become. All other choices that you can make are only possible to the extent of the choices that are made available to you in that environment. And this applies to anywhere. This applies to anywhere a person is brought up and raised. So culture, in other words, the way that the human beings where they are in that area, the way that they do things, that's the way that their children will do things. And the disparity becomes, well, what is it that they're doing and what is it that they're cooperating with as far as systems? Just like we know in third world countries, they don't have access to clean water. They don't have access to food many times. Now, what is intervening? What is in the way of them getting clean water and food in those countries? Whatever is intervening and preventing those human beings in that environment from getting access, that is what the problem is. And more than likely, it's a system in place, a government, or even the way that the government is running the society where those people live, whatever system they're using. So with that being the case, you have to realize that it's always a person's environment that determines their behavior. So when you see people doing negative things, human beings, for the most part, want to live a better life. And if they see a way for them to have access to a better life, even if it's something negative, a person can easily decide to do something negative in search of or attempting to gain access to a better life. And I don't understand why people don't get that. They pass judgment on everyone that does negativity in society, when you're not really examining the root cause of why any human being would do anything negative in the first place. What if you removed the conditions that produce that type of behavior? That is what the Free World Order and the Venus Project is about. And the Free World Order is simply my platform that I use to voice the way that I personally think. And I'm archiving all of these videos and I'm building up this content so that there's content that people can, reference as we bring in and transition into a resource-based economy, because we're going to have to do it at some point. This is not going to go on forever. We know that. There's no way in hell that a monetary system lasts. Every time that a monetary system is created and started over, it fails again. This is not going to, the next time that money fails is not going to be the first time. But I'm trying my best diligently to put out this information so that it is the last time. Because for us to continue to do the same thing over and over again is insanity. You know what the result of it is. And people are not really being educated enough. So there's not enough information out there. That's why I make a video every day. I know that my videos are going to be out there on YouTube. Somebody will watch it. Somebody will see what I'm actually talking about. And then make their way, start looking at the Venus Project. Start looking at, Zeitgeist. Anyone really that's talking about an alternative way of living in our society that provides for all human beings, not provide for some human beings. Any system that is not capable of providing for every human being on this planet in today's world, in today's age of information, technology, and science that we have now, any system that's not capable of providing for every person on the planet is straight full of shit. It's bullshit. Because we're at a point where we've seen the result of what every other system does. But we have not applied a scientific method to designing society. And that's what we're missing. And that's what a resource-based economy will bring. Because instead of us relying on a system that controls and distributes and regulates and is able to be manipulated by people, instead of relying on that, we actually rely on the planet that has been here for trillions of years, that we did not create. It was here when we all got here. Each one of you out there, myself included, this planet was already here when we got here. There were human beings before us. Today we have more information, we have more science and more technology than they had. But what are we using it for? If we're not using that to benefit every one of us on this earth, then we're doing something wrong. We're doing an injustice to ourselves as a human race, as the human race. All of we talk about race as if we're separate. We only do that based on color, language, and cultural background. Oh, black, white, brown, yellow, red. You speak this language, you speak that language. You live in that part of the world, you live in this part of the world. Y'all like to do this in your culture. They do that in their culture. It's all right to have differences between cultural behavior. All of that is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's diversity. That's great. That's a good thing. But the problem is when we bring in elements like competition. So now it becomes, oh, well, you know what? We're going to beat you in this race. Well, who the fuck made the race? Who created a race for there to be competition? You see what I'm saying? That right there alone is something that we need to move away from. We don't need to gravitate towards that. People build up pride. And this is how wars are started and conflicts are started. It's through the ego. You become an egomaniac based on being proud of who you are. If you really examine who you are, you should be proud of being a human being in today's world at this point in time. This is probably the greatest time ever because we have so much up to now as far as information, science, and technology. It's going to continue to get better, but the question is, what are we actually applying it to? We need to apply it to redesigning the way our society is functioning, so that the behavior that we talk about and we point the finger at when we're judging people, that behavior can be changed by us changing the conditions that people are living in. If everyone is having access to an abundance of all things that they desire to have, And I'm not talking about excessive desire, because there's no need for you to want to have 15 cars. What do you need 15 cars for? See, that's the bullshit that's perpetuated in the system that we're in now. The system that creates such a disparity and a disproportionate amount of wealth, where a few people have so much and then the majority of everybody else has little to nothing. Relatively speaking, you just getting by. If you're an average American, if you're an average citizen of any Western civilization, you are basically getting by. You're surviving in the system. You're not rich. You might be 1 or 2 paychecks away from being broke, from owing money, from having to borrow money just to pay your bills. That means you can't even get sick, or you have to, have a job that has the type of benefit where it allows you to get sick, but you can't really get sick for real. What if something happened to you and you can't work anymore? You see what I'm saying? How are you going to be provided for? Who are you going to rely on? So for us to think that we're independent 100%, that's all bullshit. Because we always are going to be dependent on the planet. Always. So it's up to us to regulate the way that we are managing the resources of our planet. It's not just about where you live at. We got to look at the planet. We have to look at the planet. There are parts right now in different parts of the world that will be underwater in 10 to 15 years from today. And people currently live there. You don't think that that's something to take into consideration? Again, if we're not examining this and looking at this scientifically, but we're just doing it based on what we feel like doing. In other words, people will, live somewhere that is prone to hurricanes and tornadoes, have their properties destroyed and their life as they know it basically destroyed. And beforehand that where you live is more prone to hurricanes and tornadoes being in that location. They don't build the houses to resist. They don't build structures that, can prevent everything from being destroyed. They're not building like that. But they're not exploring it either. You're not looking at things from the scientific aspect of it, and you have to. You're not looking at things from the technological aspect of it, and you have to. All of this that I'm talking about is built into the Venus Project. And I'm not saying that the Venus Project is the be-all, end-all. What I am saying is that Jacques Fresco put in 78 years of work, not only building models, but actually scientifically building things that will resist all of the conditions that are on the planet already. We already know that we experience hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, tornadoes, whirlpools. We know that these things exist in nature on the planet. So if we're not preparing for that beforehand, we fucked up. The same way that we don't have a system right now running where every human being is able to have clean air, clean water, food, a relevant education, housing, clothing, without a price tag. We don't have that. And we need to have that. You should not have to pay to live. You shouldn't have to earn a living. All of the science and technology that we have right now, robotics, automation, we have clean energy, and we're not doing it. Come on. You guys are being dumbed down by the mainstream media. You are constantly being fed the bullshit on a daily basis to keep you from actually thinking and using your brain. And you really need to wake up. It's time to wake up, because think about your children, not you. What are your children going to live in as far as this world goes? What type of world are they going to be living in? We have to think about the continuation of the human race on this planet. And I mean, people act like they don't think about that. They're thinking about today, here, now. So again, why do people behave the way that they do? Why are people doing negative things to have a better life? Because that's the yearning that a human being has. There really is no such thing as human nature, but I do believe that every human being desires to live well. You don't want to be fucked up. So that's why people do negative things to try to live a better life. Sometimes at the expense of others. I mean, many times it's at the expense of others. But it does not have to be that way. But in order for us to change that behavior, we have to change the environment that people are living in. And until you do that first, ain't nothing gonna change. So you do nothing, you get nothing. Mark Fuller. I'm out. On that note, I try not to make these videos so long, but I mean, it is what it is. I just go off and just get my shit off real quick, off my head. Thank you all for supporting. Make sure that you like the Facebook page, subscribe to us on YouTube, and be sure to get a contribution plan and contribute to us financially. Help us reach our goal of raising $1 billion to build the first city. Once we build the first city, that will be the blueprint for what we can do in future cities, and continuing the same blueprint. Resources instead of money. A resource-based economy instead of the money system that we have now that locks so many people out of being able to live a better life. All right, Mark Fuller. Deuce.